Hey everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll, and this is another episode, I guess you can call it, of Building Better Brains. So today I want to talk about what happens whenever, like, what's really going on if your child has writing issues, fine motor issues, issues with speech, issues with even letter reversals and how this can apply. So the first person that I want to talk first about Marissa, who was a mom of a 9-year-old girl, super frustrated. Both of them were super frustrated because they had been working on writing issues, dysgraphia, for about 2 to 3 years before they came to see me. And Marissa had done all of the things. She'd done the tutoring, she'd done the pencil grip, she'd done extra writing practice, all that type of stuff. She had actually as well been to speech therapy because Marissa's daughter had difficulty with speech and so forth, as well as letter reversals. And so when they came to see me, they kind of were thinking, like, is there really anything that can be done? And as soon as we tested her daughter, what we discovered is that she had a retained palmar reflex. So if you've never heard of this, allow me to explain. I've talked before about different reflexes and how they can impact learning and behavior, emotional regulation, even motor, whether it's fine or gross motor skills, speech, and so forth. And this reflex can seem really, I find it can kind of get missed, doesn't get talked about as much, but it can definitely have detrimental impacts if it does not integrate when it should. So it should disappear around 3 to 6 months of age. And a sign that it hasn't integrated is not only fine motor skills, but early on, if your child has a hard time with what we call the pincer grip. So all this, like, they just have difficulty bringing their thumb and their index finger together. So if you basically what happens is it impacts fine motor skills, but because there is a link neurologically between the hand and the mouth via the Babkin and the rooting reflex, it can also affect speech. So this reflex is triggered when the baby is nursing, or when they're sucking on a soother or something of the sort. And when any of these reflexes are attained, what can happen is that the mouth might move while the hands are busy doing something, whether it's just stroking the hand or whether your child is cutting or doing some kind of writing or something of the sort. So you might be wondering at this point, okay, what are the signs of a retained palmar reflex? It's very common with kids who have dysgraphia and writing issues. So when typical signs of a retained palmar reflex are, difficulty with writing, or just avoiding writing. Like, maybe you might not pick up on the difficulty, but you just notice they never want to write, they hate writing, but they're very smart kids. They might be able to tell you orally what's going on, but verbally, in terms of writing it, they have a hard time. Poor penmanship, difficulty cutting, buttoning, self-feeding, zipping, all of those fine motor tasks, poor speech or articulation. So we often think of other reflexes like the rooting reflex as impacting speech, but this reflex can definitely impact that as well. If they open and close their mouth when using their hands, which I mentioned, and it might be the kid, like, we all know that kid who, like, sticks their tongue out, especially if you've ever taught, like, the primary grades, where they're writing, they're kind of like, right, or they're kind of to the side when they get really into something, when they're writing or doing some kind of activity with their hands. Or maybe they move their mouth as they're working their hands, whether it's playing with Play-Doh or writing or doing arts and crafts. And they might also, if this reflex is retained, have poor visual coordination. They might reverse letters, have poor pencil grip, or difficulty differentiating between the left and right, like just having a hard time with directions. And the other interesting thing is, I mentioned poor pincer grip, but also poor posture when they are writing. So if normally, like, they might have okay posture, but the minute they get into writing, their posture isn't that great, or they complain of backaches, or it's uncomfortable to write, that's a clue as well. So there are some really simple ways to test if your child has a retained palmar reflex. Number one is you're just going to ask your child to touch their thumb and then their touch their thumb to their index finger, then their ring finger, then their other finger, then their pinky finger. And then you're just going to have them go back and forth, and you're going to see if they can do that. And then you could even make it more complex and have them go like this, back and and forth. I'm trying to do it while I'm looking at the camera, so it's a little bit in reverse. So if they have difficulty doing that, if they can do it, but they appear confused or they just seem like they're really having to concentrate to do this, or if their mouth moves when you do this, then this is a sign that the palmar reflex is likely retained. The other test that I frequently do is have the child with their palm, I'll take like a paintbrush. You can do a pen, like a pencil as well, just lightly stroking. So you're going to be stroking from like the kind of index finger towards the middle of the wrist. You're just going to kind of go like that, and you can kind of do it in a few different ways, a few times. And if the palmar is retained, chances are they're going to twitch their fingers, or they might even, like I had a kid last week tell me, oh, that tickles. So it might be a strong reaction. It might be a mild reaction. And those are the two at-home tests that I recommend trying. And as always, I always say with retained reflexes, we can't always tell by these tests. Sometimes we have to go by, kind of, I say intuition, in the sense of like, they're poor writing, they have poor speech, poor fine motor. It's likely retained, because kids can override these tests. They are not hard and fast ways of determining if a reflex is retained. But saying that, they often can be pretty accurate. So a few simple exercises that you can do at home to help integrate the palmar reflex are have them do this, right? That exercise that was the same as the test, back and forth, starting on one hand, and you might have to walk them through it at first. And the sign that they can do it really well is if they can do the cortex challenge. So that means they can talk to you about something else while they are doing the exercises. The other thing is they have like a squishy ball in their hand, and they do it because then they're having to really work that, and that helps to integrate that reflex. Having them crawl with their hands or fingers splayed is really a great way as well. Climbing monkey bars, rock climbing are excellent ways to, just work those hands and so forth. Legos, stringing beads, crafts. And actually, one of the things that they found can contribute to a retained palm reflex is just that kids are not doing enough manipulative things with their hands today. And that's why, one of the reasons why pediatricians are saying, don't have kids on iPads in the early years, particularly because that's not going to integrate, right? This touching is not going to integrate the palmar reflex. It's not going to get that pincer grasp going, as well as other dexterity with their fine motor skills and so forth in their hands. So basically, all in all, it can really impact fine motor, and it can impact speech, as I said, and it can impact letter reversal. So they might be writing backwards because it impacts visual coordination. So really, really important for reading and for writing. So if you want to learn more about retained reflexes, I'm actually going to be offering a training on Saturday, April 9th about basically identifying the root causes and solutions to your child's learning difficulties. So that is actually on promo currently for $37 instead of $47. If you want to get in and save your spot with the early bird price, DM me, message me, whatever, and I will get that set up for you and save your spot. And basically, we're going to go through some of the top factors in terms of the biology of learning, like nutrition, gut health, toxicity, and so forth, as well as retained reflexes and brain balance and all of that type of stuff. And we're going to try to find out some of the root causes of your child's difficulties rather than just focusing on Band-Aid approaches. So let me know in the comments below whether you know your child has a retained palmar based on what I'm telling you. Maybe you know it because you've had it tested before. Maybe you are doing the test as we speak because you're like, oh my goodness, I have to try this. Let me know the results. And does your child struggle with writing, dysgraphia, dislikes writing, speech issues? Does their mouth move? Let me know in the comments below whether you're watching the live or the replay. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.